Alrighty, so I'm not gonna lie, I know I've been a little lazy with the content here lately. I've not made a long form video since I got back from Nashville a couple weeks ago. Alright, it's been more than a couple weeks, and I've also been finishing up a pretty sizable project for a client. And throughout this process, I liked a lot of the stuff he added as far as effects goes, but I didn't want to have to go through and, save presets and remember where everything was, screenshot, all that sort of stuff. So I got to thinking, surely there's got to be some sort of good FL Studio feature that I can just save certain stuff like files and presets from one project and import into another, right? There is. Yeah, so if y'all ever went to export like a project and you go to File, Export, Zip Loop Package, and you see Project Bones and you're like, I wonder what that is. Yeah, we did some learning. We know what that is now. So for this video, I want to give everybody a little bit of a deep dive into what Project Bones are and how they can save you so much time whenever you're working on multiple projects that need to have similar features or effects or even files for that matter. So I wanted to see if the manual even mentioned what Project Bones were, and I actually can't really find much on it here in the manual. I've went through like exports, file formats, and I just don't think it actually mentions too much about them. Hence why I've never learned too much about it or thought to use it. So, I've always seen that here in the project export menu, and, I just kind of figured, well, Project Bones, surely it's like the structure of a project, Obviously, that just makes sense. And it's also a folder down here in the browser that I've never, really thought to click on or anything. And I don't really even recall seeing it before I ended up exporting this. So I want to show you all what this does and how you can effectively use it in your own projects. So I'm not going to really play this project in its entirety just because it's an unreleased track and this is like nowhere near even where I've got it sounding in my mix and production session. But as you can see here, the client recorded some piano and strings audio through a keyboard here, added in some different like drum sounds and stuff. And then we also have some instruments here in the channel rack, as you can see from the MIDI down below here. So for this particular project, a lot of the song project files he sent me have been him singing and recording guitar, and that's been about it. And that's pretty much the extent to what were in each individual project here. So, if I needed to go back and export certain files that I didn't have or, look for different takes and stuff, I had all of that at my disposal. Well, when I sat down to work on this last week, I really liked what he had done to everything and how everything is laid out here. So as you can see, there's a lot of files all over the place, and ultimately what was easier to do for the majority of this was just to label everything, come up here, go to Tools, and export all playlist tracks, and it would only export the ones obviously with stuff on them. However, I did want to retain the MIDI files and tracks here for each of these plugins and just open those up in my project. I wanted to tweak these individually and not have to rely on the audio for this stuff. So I'm sitting here looking at this and I'm like, you know what? Let's try exporting Project Bones just to see what happens. So anyways, I go to File, Export, and Project Bones obviously, and I just title it what the project is, which is I'm Not Going Home, and immediately this little section here pops up. So I go to clicking around here, and this is just so much of a time saver. It exports your automation clips, your channels, both audio and unsorted as it says here, which unsorted is typically almost always going to be your instruments just because they're in the unsorted display filter here. Effects, which are every single plugin he's got on something in here. So as you can see, this like strings effects he's threw all this stuff on, as well as mixer, which houses each individual channel that these effects are on. And lastly, the MIDI scores. So these are the exports of each of these individual instruments and MIDI channels that he's laid something down for in the channel rack. So as soon as I discovered this, I was like, this is great. This is perfect. Let's go throw it in my project. So while this is loading, this would be a great time to ask you all, if you wouldn't mind to please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It'll help me out a whole lot and let YouTube know that others need to watch this video. And after you hit the like and subscribe button, go ahead and comment something down below so YouTube will know to send this video out to others so others can learn how to use this feature and use it themselves. Also, if you're not already, be sure to check out my grouped community called the Seige Stands, where I post all kinds of different stuff that I don't post here publicly. For the people that subscribe to the artist and producer tiers, you get free beats and melody loops every month. And it's also the space where if I release anything, I will let everybody know first before it goes out to the general public. Alrighty, let's get back to the video. So as you can see here, it's a bit of a different looking project than the one I was just in, especially after I scroll and get down here to a lot of the extra production elements I've added in. And as you can see here, I've got keys, synth, and synth bass. So originally one of those plugins was Sky Keys, which I also own, so that was obviously how I was able to open everything up and use it. And I wanted to go ahead and open that up as an instrument in this project, since this is a bit of a mix and production project. And I might want to adjust some of the stuff he had done here. He like has the saturation thing cranked, which makes sense. I didn't know that till now, actually. But originally when I started this project, it was completely blank, obviously. And to simulate that, we will do that Here. Alrighty, so now we're back in my blank mixing template where that project started. So as you can see here, there's nothing here when I open up my channel rack other than the master automation here for fading in and out. So we need to go ahead and import his instruments. So let's come over here to Project Bones, the project title, click on Channels, Unsorted, and now we have the exact plugins in their exact states that he used in that project. So let's open up this Sky Keys that I just showed you all. Okay, this was not the one he used then. Let's open up the other one here, and look, it's the exact same thing with that saturation cranked all the way up to 100% for whatever reason. It kind of works, I'm not gonna lie. Now that we have that, well, what do we need next? We need the MIDI. So let's come down to Scores, go over to Sky Keys, drop it, bam. We have the exact same sound and notes he played in that other project in our own now. Okay, let's see what that sounds like without the saturation. Okay. That makes a lot more sense then. So what else did I do? I came over here to Unsorted and opened up the rest of everything else he used in his project, as well as the MIDI for each of those instruments, which I promptly replaced this with a proper synth bass. As soon as I realized this is how Project Bones worked, I thought of a million different ways that I can actually use this now. There's a couple of different styles of beats that I pretty much always use some of the exact same drum sounds on, which obviously I can go favorite and all that, but it would be so much easier just to save one of those projects right there, go grab whatever I'm looking for, and then throw it in there. And that's so much more efficient than having to come over here, search for specific names, or go through my favorited stuff and try to remember what they were called and all that sort of stuff. So now I want to go ahead and show you all why I went ahead and still exported my audio files out. Instead of using the audio out of this, I did pull some of the items out here just to check them out and see what the deal was. However, for example, like this overhead snare here, when we pull it out, look, it's just one note. So I would have to still go back through here, you know, change the grid size, place the notes out wherever they need to land, you know, all that sort of stuff, versus just coming over here and dragging in an audio file that has everything rendered out exactly where they were and where they need to be placed. So one of the cool things about using audio through this way, though, is that it does retain any alterations you do to the audio clip. So for example, we come over here, I didn't touch any of the warp modes, and it just automatically is already here warped perfectly to the project tempo, which was what he had set it at originally in that project. For example, if I drag these stick sounds in, you know, it's already warped and turned down, which obviously you just saw me drag in, I didn't touch it. So I did find it a little more effective to go ahead and export everything from that project, but also refer back to the audio in the Project Bones here. So for example, this stick hit, I'm like, well, let's go ahead and look through here and see what the original was. So here we go. Bam, we've got the exact same original clip here. And as you can see, it of course is warped to the project tempo, which is not what this was exported to, so obviously that's why they don't match up. So another quick example here is he's got a crowd talking and making noise and everything here at the last little bit of the song, and I've just left it as is. He did some like fade out and fade back in stuff here at the end. That's dope. It's cool to have everything lined up where it is. However, it is nice to be able to come over here and pull this original file in and go, okay, let's see what he did to it. You know, did he stretch it? Did he alter it? As you can see, it looks like he might have stretched it out a little bit. So looking at it, actually, I think it was these two audio clips combined here with them being like stretched and everything else, you know, altered so they were a little bit different. And that's what originally makes up this export from the other project. So besides the actual individual audio files and the instruments themselves, let's go ahead and talk about the mixer here for a minute. So there was a couple of sounds and elements in the project that he did his own sound designing on. So obviously I want to retain what he did for those, but also be able to mix in between and not just export them with the effects on them. So this is where the effects and the mixer folders come in handy here for Project Bones. So to demonstrate this, I want to go ahead and show this as an example on this Cymatics audio here, just so it's nothing from his project. We've got it on track 6 here, so let's open up the mixer. I accidentally routed it here. Let's just drag it to get it out of the way. I'm looking at what he did for the guitar stuff. We can scroll down here, find the mixer track called Guitar Effects, and let's just start dropping it on here. And once again, this is saving the exact same presets and states within each individual plugin, so I'm not having to go through and open up other presets and stuff. It's all correct, and as you can see, it even puts the title here next to it in the plugins window. And lastly, we've got a delay. So this is what that track sounds like before the effects. And this is what it sounds like after. Obviously doesn't sound that very good with the piano going through it, but for the guitar track, it actually worked really well. He did some like kind of cool guitar feedback, like, you know, almost like a riser, and then just a couple different notes here and there. So it worked really well for what he was going for. So Project Bones saves our individual mixer track effects, but it also saves our individual mixer tracks themselves. So instead of dragging each individual effect over here from the effects folder onto here, I can just come over to mixer, go to guitar effects, drop it, and bam, I've got everything. It's got the same title that he originally had on it. It's got the same level. And it's also got the proper order of everything. You know, I just threw those all on as I saw them. I didn't realize that he had guitar rig, delay, then the spreader, and then the EQ at the very end here. Okay, so this was a beat I actually made with that piano I just showed you the other day.
Hey, hold on, right it back, see?
Let's go ahead and export this as Project Bones. And one thing I am making sure to do is leave everything in this folder that's called Project Bones. You know, a lot of the times, at least me personally, I don't want to leave whatever I'm exporting in the default FL Studio location. You know, I want to put it in my own spot. But since this is already tied over to the browser, I want to just leave it where it's at. As you can see, bam, it's done, and it's got everything that we need here. I've got all my individual MIDI files for each of my drum sounds. Nothing is showing up under the automation folder, but if we go to channels here and go to automation, we have our automation tracks that we're looking for. So just out of curiosity here, let's go and open up a new project, and inside of this project, let's go ahead and drag in our mixer channels here. Okay, for some reason it's got a huge gap between some stuff. That could happen to you, so just make sure you look and see where everything goes. So let's throw this on here. This was for our synth bass. We've got Fruity Parametric here, and now let's go over to automation and go to Fruity Parametric and drag it in, and let's see if it actually automatically links it here. Okay, so as you can see, it does not link it, so you will still have to come over here, right click, hit link to controller, Fruity Parametric, whatever it's called, and bam, you've got it. Now that I've got this project exported, this was actually a perfect example for what I mentioned earlier. I can come over here and click on the project here, go over to channels, unsorted, and now I have all of these, each individual sounds from that other project. Now, one thing to note whenever you use Project Bones, if you move any of these original files or this original project here, you might have some errors. So as you can see, I click on this snare here, it says that it is saved to Project Bones, blah, 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 and it's a .fst file. This is a FL Studio state file, which are used to save generator and effects presets. I would have thought it was template, just to be honest, FL Studio template. This is basically acting similar to a shortcut on your desktop. So the reason I said to be careful and to be aware, because if you start moving a root file similar to desktop shortcuts, they won't work anymore, because the shortcut is saying to only check this certain location here for this file. In the same way here, when we drag this in and we look here and just hover over the file name here, we can see it is in my 2025 projects, that project title, samples, that snare 1. It's going to be the exact same case for all these others because it is pulling that sound from that project. Just for a quick little experiment here, let's go over to the project folder here and delete just everything in here real quick, just to see what happens whenever we delete something that is linked to Project Bones. And if we click on this, okay, this is not the same hi-hat. It saved all of our settings and stuff, thankfully. Okay, so this is the same snare, and as you can see over here in the top left, it is actually pulling this from my samples folder now. Okay, so it does appear to be a little bit more robust when it comes to moving stuff around, but just go ahead and keep that in mind in case you ever are working on something important, you know, and you're pulling from Project Bones and you don't already have that rendered out or anything in your new project. As I showed, it just for some reason didn't pull the correct hi-hat there for a minute, but it seemed to pull all of the other sounds correctly. So next time you're working on a batch of projects that you want to have similar sounds or presets or mixer states, and you don't feel like going through and saving presets for every single one of them, go ahead and give Project Bones a try for once. It might end up helping you out more than you'd realize. Thank you all for watching. My name is seige, aka Seige. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It'll help me out a whole lot, and it'll let YouTube know others need to learn about Project Bones as well. And also feel free to check out all of the links down in the description. Follow me on Instagram. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me over there. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Have a good whatever time of day you're watching this, and God bless.